the Patriot network. Now, the Patriot network, remember, is also a business. It's always been a business, big business, long before 9/11. And a Toronto Star article quite a few years ago explained that the CIA set up the shortwave for broadcasting, public broadcasting, back in the 60s or 50s even, with the intent of using selected Christians as a front against communism, so their propaganda would counter communism. That was supposedly the idea. Personally, I'm a bit doubtful if the CIA ever let go of their hold on these particular programs. Now, in with them, the programming, they're always selling what I call panic items, and heavily funded by the gold and silver industry. Now, there's very few outlets for these people to sell their products in today's happy-go-lucky society, where everybody's, well, you know where they are. The last thing on their mind is gold and silver. So the only medium they can have is to present themselves on radio and push it there with an audience who are always on the verge of panic. And often some of these shows, under the guise of patriotism, are actually 1 hour or 2 hour advertisements. The technique is where they hype them up about the coming collapse of the economy. This has been going on for 40 years now, this sort of stuff for the same people. And near the end of the hour, once they've got their audience petrified, they come forth with the answer, which is to buy their gold and silver. And there's a whole bunch of other products. And unfortunately, the counter-health industry, which is owned by the same ones that own the other side of the health industry, are selling all kinds of junk and gizmos to people who are sick and who are so desperate they'll try anything. So you'll find all of these products in this whole wrapped up in the Patriot business. And the other part of the Patriot business is really an American thing. It was designed specifically for America. This is psychopolitics, a science known a long, long time ago, that you give a type of culture and superimpose it with a dominant religion generally. And then you manipulate the religion and the people towards a definite goal, an outcome. And that's why the U.S. was given more of a dose of, and heavily financed to get the messages across to the people, but a massive dose of religion. And it was really a form of, it was Schofield really. Schofield brought out the Schofield Bible, and he was paid by Rothschilds to do it. And he made a few alterations there to try to boost up revelations, to make the public think that that which was to happen in the next 100 years was planned. It was all planned by God. And it's amazing how it's worked on the minds of the public. Tremendous indoctrinations, repeated over and over and over by countless front Christian people on the Patriot network, generally calling themselves right-wing. Other ones are British Israel under many different guises. They're British Israel. But always pushing the same products, the same hype, and then terrifying the listeners, and then telling them, don't worry, it's God's will. You know, God's in control. After they've just scared the bejesus out of you. And the U.S. under psychopolitics was decided long ago they would use religion to make them go along with this New World Order agenda. And it certainly has done the trick with a lot of people. Now, having said all that, where was I going with it? Oh, yeah. It was because on the Patriot Network, often after I've said something, the well-known people who do the rounds of the networks are suddenly all over the airwaves, repeating what I've said and then spinning it back off into revelations or it's God's will and so on. So that's again how you counter intelligence. You counter it by using the same information, attaching aliens, reptiles or God to it, and you spin it off. That's counterintelligence.
We've been guided for thousands of years, and definitely from the inception of some definition of wealth. Most natural tribes don't even have terms for wealth or personal possessions even, because they lived naturally. They didn't live in an acquiring economic system where the goods themselves have importance. And money is the key of all domination. It doesn't matter what it's called or what's used for money, as long as a few people at the top have the right to say what it is, how much it's worth, and how much you will be taxed back, because that's your labour going back in taxes. The upper crust then use those taxes to have standing armies and police forces and bureaucracies to dominate you. So money makes this world go around indeed. It's interesting to see some of the emails which come in concerning people's views. And one person wrote recently that he didn't quite agree with my take on money. And I think he was pushing the usual thing. A novice learns about the gold and silver from the Patriot movement and how it's lawful currency. And that's the stage this particular last person who emailed was stuck at. He doesn't realize that the same people who run the system today with paper money and IOUs and all the rest of it, regardless of the Bretton Woods Agreement and all the other agreements they went through, still, they ran the gold standard too. They still do. They own the gold mines, in fact. So to go back to the lawful money, you get the same bunch in charge, and it just wears out your pockets faster. There's quite a weight in that lawful money. And they again will tell you what it's worth, you see. People who still think that the government can take control of the corrupt money supply in the system by following the laws that were laid down really haven't got it at all. They haven't understood what's going on. Because the exoteric, even the constitution of any country is the exoteric. It's for the public consumption of how things are supposed to be. And never is, and never was. For those who want to know how the system works, go beyond Bretton Woods, go into the 1800s and see the big boys crash the gold standard 3 times in the late 1800s, rake in millions and millions of dollars in the US alone by doing so. 3 depressions in the latter part of the 1800s. And they were brought on by 3 bankers who planned it that way. And it doesn't matter what you're using, as long as they're in charge of it, as long as they put up a debt system, floating a big casino called the debt system, this casino of stocks and bonds where people buy your debt and want a profit from the debt, guaranteed to them by governments if they buy this debt. It's a big casino which is totally rigged. And who owned all the gold mines in the 1800s, 1900s, 20th century, 21st century? It's the same people. Look who put Cecil Rhodes in Africa to take over the diamond and gold mines, to find them all and claim them and stake them. It's the same people. And these are the same people who now issue checks to governments to print money and then demand real wealth back in return. Money has always been a con from the inception of it, because it's not a real worth good. It's a substitute for everything else. You must believe in a substitute. In fact, you must believe that it's more important than food or anything else that you could barter. And once you believe that, you've had it. Whether it's porcupine quills, seashells, quartz stones, gold, silver, or tin, it doesn't matter, because you don't have a say in how much the value is. Remember, value is only an idea. The price of something is an idea. And we're brought up in this system never questioning all of these ideas. We think they're real and concrete somehow, as though it's natural. If a completely different society had been designed for the people would grow up into it thinking it was quite natural. You see, that it's always been this way.